Hello, and welcome back to Is He Really Gonna Build Another Farm Craft? On the Scarworld Season 2 server. My name is Volcata, and I implore you to stick around long enough to hear what I have to say before you go, I don't want to watch another farm being built, I'll come back next week. This episode is not going to be about building a farm, but I am going to build a farm in this episode. I'm going to do it very quickly, at least from your standpoint, because I need the materials that the farm's going to produce. And at the end of last episode, when I built this super smelter, I fully intended not to be building a farm this week. I don't want to build another farm this week. I want to work on my industrial build area, make it look really cool. But I really also want to use my smelter. And my smelter is not getting used because I don't have a lot to smelt. I mean, I built it so I could smelt lots of nether brick because I'm going to use tons of it in the pathing and whatnot around the industrial build area. But I just don't have enough. You know, 1 or 2 smelts of it and it's done. And I'm never going to need it again. And I was always going to build a kelp farm anyway. So I figured I'll build it now. And I really like the dried kelp blocks. I think they're really cool. Green is my favorite color. They got a great texture to them. And I want to use them. Now, I don't know that I'll use them in this area because I already have kind of a palette picked out, which is primarily going to be red, yellow, black, and white. That's for the industrial build area. But I do have a use for the dried kelp blocks and a aesthetic for another project I want to work on, which is related to the area. Plus, I probably can use them to accent this build area as well. So I decided, let's do it now. Let's do it now. Again, I'm not going to dedicate this episode to doing this. This farm is going to be very tedious. It's going to be very repetitious. So probably a time lapse and we're done with it. We move on. Time lapse over. And Kelp Farm complete. It's done. Fully done. I don't know how long that time lapse turned out to be, but Hopefully it didn't take a significant amount of time in the video, but it definitely took lots of time for me. This is... last time I checked, when I logged out and logged back in, I think I'm at over 4 hours of replay footage that I'm going to condense down into a time lapse. So for you guys, this probably didn't take a whole lot of time. But I'm going to give a quick review of it because, again, I don't want to dwell on this for this episode. The first of all, the walls you can see down here are not, they're just dirt and stone. There's a reason why I didn't dig them out. As you know, I always wall off everything, including the interior here. The reason is because I'm going to come back and replace all those walls with dried kelp blocks. So I figured I'd just leave them until I got the blocks. Plus, that wall right there is between redstone and and that. So that's going to be fun when I tear that out. There is a possibility that some of the kelp is going to get lost because I made the mistake of digging out this first side here. So you can't really tell, but that wall is inset by 1. So that's where it's all going to be dried kelp. And so some of the kelp can get stuck in it on the way up. Hopefully it won't be a lot. I'm okay with some loss on the first run. After I put in the dried kelp, then there will be a solid wall that will block it from flowing inwards. Now also I have put a shulker loader under here. I know you can't see me clicking. But all this will go into a shulker loader, and this barrel, I'm probably going to bury it in the ground, is the input for the shulkers. And it's set up to hold multiple shulkers. I think I got like 4 in it right now, empty. And when it produces the shulker, a full shulker, instead of it coming up to a chest, it actually delivers itself to the smelter, which I will show you in just a moment. But this is the literal inaugural pressing of this button. Hopefully, I didn't mess anything up. So 3, 2, 1, button, button, button. All right, there goes the flying arm. Excellent. Here comes the kelp. I've tested the flying arm in the sense that I've sent it down and back up. Why are these things not moving? What is going on here? Oh no, something has turned this into solid blocks. How'd that happen? Oh, I bet one of the corners became a solid block. Oh man. That's not going to be an easy fix. All right, well, this is the test. This side's fine. All right, I'll get back to fixing this. Let's see if I can catch these through the corner. All right, so at least we don't lose too much of the kelp. And away it all goes. So this is expected, right? These are all going to be full, and eventually these will empty out and start picking up the kelp. So that's expected. If this becomes such a problem that I see it despawning, I can expand the hoppers back further. So we'll see how this comes out. This is an easy thing to fix. And the shulkers will end up in here. Right where I need them. Because I'll take the shulkers out and I will put them in here. Not the shulkers, but I'll empty the contents into here. Smelter, smelter, smelter. And then dried kelp. Any second now. Any second now. Any second now. Hey, we have kelp. Sweet. All right. Let me put my armor back on. So the other ones will be working. I'm going to have to go fix that water stream. And I think it's going to require me to, actually redo the entire water stream line for that side. So that's going to take quite a bit of time. But, gotta be done. I gotta go. Love my smelter. And I have a reason to use it now. Alright, so this will give me my shulker worth of dried kelp. And I should get other shulkers coming as well. With, assume I don't know how much kelp is in one load. So I don't know how many shulkers I'll get out of. If I get 1, if I get 4, I don't know. I've done no math. All I know is that it should be taxing on my system of fueling, how much bamboo I get from a single bamboo run. And so I don't really think that I want to make the farm any bigger. But we'll see. We'll see. All right. So I'm gonna let this smelt up, and I'm gonna go fix the kelp farm so that we can move on to another project, because I'll now have kelp for making kelp blocks. All right, we have kelp blocks for building. Yes, we have kelp blocks for building. I have been busy. In fact, since that last clip, it's been days. Actually, I didn't take days to collect all of that kelp. I mean, it did take a fair amount of time because it takes a little while for kelp to grow, plus all the fuel, and all that. But I've been rather industrious over the past few days. So let's drop these off. And these are important, and we'll come back to them in a moment. But I want to kind of talk a little bit about something here, which is maintenance. The more complex your builds become and more of them you have, the more you use them, the more, kind of like in real life, they need maintenance. The more you use them, you start to notice inefficiencies sometimes, or bugs in the system that you didn't even know were there. They didn't manifest until something was used on large scale. And this smelter is an excellent example of that idea. And I wanted to show you some changes I have made. So, first of all, between the clips in this episode and the completion of the smelter from last episode, you might have noticed a small change, and it's subtle. But I think in the previous episode, this red line didos over 1, just this little jump over, and then goes back into the block, which is not true anymore. This is back to the original look of the build from the first episode when it was built. And it's because it's undergone multiple changes in multiple areas. And I just kind of wanted to discuss that. So as I started to get large-scale smelting done, I noticed that the very first furnaces were getting 2 blocks instead of just 1. And what was happening is when the cart would go all the way around and come back, it had to jump tracks to go back down. Well, you might know that when a cart jumps from a straight track over a turn onto another straight track, the cart will do a little twitch, just a little twitch, like it wants to turn, but then it goes back to straight. Well, that little twitch was catching the edge of the hopper, and it was depositing a second item. So my initial fix for that was I moved the rail over, just here. It made a little turn and then came back over. Now that solved this problem, but then it extended how long it took for the gap on the smelting. And you might have noticed in the previous clip, there was like 5 or 6 blank spot of the smelters being out, which was longer than I originally wanted in the original design. And the original design, it was only like 3 or 4. Well, I made some more changes. Just kept improving, and kept improving. And after some clever resetting of designs, we'll watch the gap now. There we go. It's back down to 3. And that's really what I wanted. I just wanted the little shadow of the cart. And it's just further refinements of the background mechanisms. This window is a little bit smaller because I've had to cut some corners, which is perfectly fine. You wouldn't even notice it. It's still perfectly good. So another thing I found, and this was really caught me off guard, was that sometimes I would find that there would be bamboo up here. And boy, that took some investigating. But what was happening was the mechanism, the cart, when it was coming around, when it was about right here, it was passing under the water stream that was carrying the bamboo, and it was sucking bamboo down into it. So I had to change the water streams. And so that's why you can't see the red glass anymore in this area, because I had to change the way it worked. But now that's cleared up. So that's another thing that's been fixed. And finally, I found that under heavy load, I was actually running out of fuel. Fuel was not getting here fast enough. And so I had to redefine the fuel system. And you might remember that here we had a pair of droppers, high-speed firing into the stream, but that wasn't enough. And so I went turbocharged. So now there's 6 on each side, and each one of them has a dedicated double chest that feeds it from 2 angles, so that they always get to fire at max speed. And that has solved the problem. There it goes. Look at it go. In fact, these are now disabled. I don't need it doesn't need to be 8. 6 is enough. And that's over, 2 or 3 days of monitoring it and seeing is enough going through. It looks like I did some maintenance. So there was another thing that became a problem. And apparently I didn't replace all the glass. So this thing, I have not been able to cause any problems with it. I have put several shulkers worth of stuff in there. You can see that going through. And I have not been able to run it out. I've got the pacing refined. She's working great. This is great. This is perfect. So the project we're going to do today is we're going to stop having to walk or fly to our nether portal. And more importantly, people who come to visit us are now going to have an easier time finding us. Because I have people come to use the smelter, or for me to help them out from my villagers or whatever. And inevitably, it's easy for me to tell them where the portal is, because if you guys remember, my portal is on the main line, and I don't want to give that up. I don't want to move this to my actual base. Plus, it's in between my build area and the cursed lands, which I promise you we will get back to. So I'm keeping this spot, but what I need to do is I need to make a way to get from here to the industrial build area, and that's going to be a rail line, and it's going to be a tunnel. So I'm going to come out from under it. As you can see, I'm starting to set up a beacon, and it's just going to come along. It's not going to be too long. That's the middle of it, and it's going to turn, and it's going to pop out at the back of the trading hall. Ooh, that was not graceful. And this also gives me kind of a use for this back room. So it'll come out right here, and that gives me a use for this. It'll also allow me to kind of justify having kept this because, like the other day, someone needed a bunch of villagers for a farm, and I gave them, I don't know, 24 or more villagers. A lot. They took a lot. And I had to run that all through here, and they kept coming back for more, and so I had to keep rerunning it. And, you know, I can't leave the tracks run because that exposes a hole in the wall where bad things can come in and hurt my innocent little villagers. So this rail line will be able to dual purpose. It'll transport people, but I'll be able to switch the line over and get carts going to, you know, from the breeder to the portal. So that's going to be our project for this week. And I'm going to go ahead and finish up the beacon and start digging. So I think that's going to be a time lapse. So let's get to it. Now that was a jaunty little time lapse, now wasn't it? I'm sure the tune is very appropriate for the pacing of it. Don't mind me, I'm a little loopy. I've been busy, super duper busy. But you know that, right? Because that's what I tend to say whenever I come back from having done a lot of stuff off camera. So the tunnel came out beautifully. I am very happy with it. The color scheme, you know, the black, white, and green, I think came together quite well. But I've done a lot more since that time lapse. Now, of course, a proper rail line has to have a place for carts. You know, a destination. And, you know, I was going to record it on camera, but it was just taking too much time. It was just, you know, I mean, part of it was that I was in chat with a bunch of other Scarians, and we were just being, you know, whimsical and goofy, and trying to record this thing would have never worked out because it took hours of just not getting it really done, but getting it kind of done. You know how it goes. But that's great because, you know, it's nice having a friendly community and fun people to chat with while you play. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the cart system. Ta-da! I know, a bold choice, right? Going with the warped wart. You know, I was trying to stick with the green. And if you guys recall, so this is, right, the other side of that wall is the trading hall. And the trading hall, of course, had this hallway, and I had the dark prismarine behind the lamps, and that was always going to have to be part of this room. I couldn't not have it here because I didn't want to mess with the hallway. I like the way the hallway looks, and so I kind of had to work around it. And it created an interesting challenge. I didn't want to just make the whole room dark prismarine because that pattern was just a little too much. And, you know, I mean, the colors were okay, but it was just too much. So, you know, after some ponderance and some testing, I came up with using the warp block. And then, you know, the color worked out pretty well. And the more I've looked at it, the more happy I've been with it. So this works. It works great. It's still in the greenish blue hue, so it works great. You know, and the cactus is green and white and black, and a little bit of prismarine blockage, and the warp wood for the buttons and stuff. I think this all came together quite nicely. So yeah, so let me show you the mechanism. This is kind of a foolproof mechanism, and this is inspired by a video I saw, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago by Mumbo Jumbo, where he did kind of an updated video of here are various mechanisms, redstone mechanisms that everybody should know how to build. And most of them I was really familiar with. Obviously, you know, you've seen a lot of the work I've already done. But there was a cute little compact launcher for carts that inspired me to build a more complex version of it. And the basic premise of it was that you stepped on a plate which shut off the rail line so that when a cart is called, it can't run off without you. And I think on his device, the plate did double duty. I think it also called for the cart. I don't want it to do that because, you know, like I'm going to be arriving on a cart and I'm going to run over that plate. And I don't want it calling a cart on its own. So I adapted it. You know, there's a little button here that I'm trying to click on even though I can't see my hands. Alright, that was close. And it'll sit there all the time, right? It won't go without me, which is awesome. So let's take the ride. And of course, you know, the whole purpose of this was to have a rail line that goes to my portal. It's going to be easier for me to get people to come to my base, you know, not get lost when they're coming to my base. And I went ahead and matched the wall theme here, even though it was unnecessary. And on the outside, I'll end up covering it up. I'm probably going to close off the portal from this side out to the outer world because there's no reason really to be coming out of it this way. But I might not. Who knows? Maybe I'll make a little room behind it with a door that lets out. But it's the same on this side. Yeah, the orientation's a little changed based on, you know, where we're going to be arriving from. And it works the same. And you can see I widened the portal. And I kind of updated my portal on the other side as well in the nether, just to kind of recenter it nicely. But it doesn't need to be seen. But that's it. That's it. This is done. And it works beautifully. You know, it catches the carts and puts them back, you know, in the dispenser. All right, well, let's call it an episode. We've wrapped everything up we wanted to get done this episode. We got the Kelp Farm done. Got the tunnel done. We got the terminal rooms done. We got a cool compact mechanism for launching and catching carts done. Yeah, I'm quite happy with it. We've done a lot. I love the way the tunnel came out. The colors are wonderful. The pacing of the rail and the view as you ride it is just right. And I really like the kelp block. So, you know, now that we have a kelp farm, expect to see more of this kelp block in the future because I got a lot of it and I think it's awesome. So I'm going to find excuses for it. Thank you again for coming, and I hope you enjoyed this. If you liked it, leave a like, leave a comment if you got anything to say. But I will see you guys in the next episode.